Welcome to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I am your co-host, Liz.
And I'm your co-host, Natalie. And tonight we're back after our 2 months from hosting some guests with our friend Mindy from Iowa. She is the host of the podcast Up-Level Your Life with Mindy, as well as a speaker, certified holistic health and nutrition coach, and published author. Her mission is to help individuals uncover their best selves through the power of self-care and self-love. She's going to tell us about her 3 births and 1 very unplanned home birth. So thanks so much for coming on tonight, Mindy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Yeah, so I have 3 kids. My oldest is almost 14, and I have a daughter who I was telling you is her birthday is today. So happy birthday to little Elise. She's 11, and then I have an 8-year-old, almost 9-year-old. I've got a bunch of May babies. We get so many May birthdays at our house, but we farm. We live in a small rural community in the Midwest here in Iowa, and yeah, we just hang out and do our thing. So
I love it. Awesome. So if you want to tell us about you and your partner's journey to getting pregnant and when you guys decided to start a family.
Yeah, we wanted to get started with the family right away. We'd lived together for a little bit before we got married. So we felt like, yeah, we get this. Let's add to this mess here. And really we never had too much trouble in conceiving. So we, I think maybe second try and got pregnant right away. First baby, pretty unremarkable pregnancy. Up until the very end, I was watched for preeclampsia. They put me on bed rest, but I didn't even make it a week on bed rest. And then I went into labor. It was 2 weeks early, but it was just natural. And then hooray, I didn't have to be on bed rest anymore because I was already bored. God love all the women that are out there that have to be on bed rest for a long time because it's not all it's good. Like the first day is fun, and then it's not fun at all.
Yeah, especially for you, like he was like busy having a very busy lifestyle, it seems like, with the farming.
Yeah. So, that was pretty good. I had my second daughter again, I don't think we might have I think maybe 2 tries on that one too. We got pregnant pretty quick with her as well. Again, another just plain old pregnancy up until the very end when I did have preeclampsia. If you know anything about it, though, you don't feel sick at all. You feel totally fine. It's the doctors that tell you, hey, you're like really dangerously sick. Oh, okay. I had no idea. So I had to be induced with her 3 weeks early. And, that was it really, if my doctor wouldn't have told me, I would have had no idea I was induced. The labor and delivery went excellent. It wasn't until later reflecting on it, like, oh gosh, there were 1 million people in that room when I gave birth to my daughter. And I was thinking, oh, it's because she was 3 weeks early. They were ready to like whisk her away if there were, problems, but she was fine. I mean, she was over 8 pounds and she was healthy as could be.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, I know. Like, can you imagine if it would have gone another 3 weeks? Like, how big was that baby going to get? So yeah, both of those pregnancies, pretty uneventful up until, right at the very end. A little foreshadowing here for pregnancy number 3 and birth number 3. When I had my first baby, I remember being in the hospital and the nurse telling me kind of in between contractions saying, hey, are you going to have more kids, do you think? And I was like, yeah, I think this is our first one. We'd like to have more if we can. And she said, do me a favor. When you go into labor with your next kiddo, don't dilly-dally. I specifically remember that because I was like, dilly-dally? Who says that? But this nurse did. She was like, don't dilly-dally. I was like, okay, this is my first baby. I have no idea what she's talking about. But what she was referencing was that this is going pretty quick for a first birth. My water broke at home with that kiddo and at 8:00 in the morning, and he was born at like 4:30.
Oh, wow.
So, to me, that's for a first baby, that's pretty quick, but it's not, that I didn't think it was that. I was lying there in agony for hours. I'm like, this does not feel quick at all. So I don't know what you're talking about. And then when I had my daughter, I was induced, and how, I remember we had to be at the hospital at 7:30 in the morning, just, you to check in, then you got to change your clothes and fill out the paperwork and start the IV and all that takes like forever. So I have no idea what time I actually, they started the Pitocin or whatever it was that, I'm pretty sure it was Pitocin. I remember we watched a movie. We watched Moneyball with Brad Pitt, pretty good flick. And it wasn't until like the end of it where like contractions were, okay, this is like the real deal. But so I got to the hospital at 7:30 and she was born around 12:50. So like around lunchtime.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I pushed for 20 minutes with her and, but again, like, I don't know any different because like, well, the second one's supposed to go fast. And plus I was induced. So that's going to be different anyway. Right. Like, this isn't natural at all. But none of that prepared me for my birth number 3. And birth number 3, again, the pregnancy was just regular. I was watched for gestational diabetes a little bit, had to do the second glucose test, lucky me. But it came back fine. That was really the only thing. I remember like being paranoid about preeclampsia because I'd had it, and we kept, every time I go to Walmart, I'd stick my arm in the little like free blood pressure thing, like just to make sure. Like,
where have those gone? Where are they?
They're not there anymore. So I guess, I don't know what moms do now. If you have to, do you get your own at home so you can just do it? Or I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. But yeah, so I was a little paranoid about that, but it was, I never had it. It was fine. With my first 2 pregnancies, I had gone, 2 weeks early and then 3 weeks early. So when I hit that, like, I carried this one like to term, and man, that last like week and a half of pregnancy is for the birds. Like, like I had heard like moms like, oh, it's terrible. I don't want to be pregnant anymore. And I was like, oh, I never really felt that. Well, yeah, because I had my kids like way early. Like I didn't get to that point. So then when I was, you could just get to like week 39 and you're just get it out of me. And I remember going to the doctor. It was 2 days before my due date. And I was something like 3 centimeters dilated already. And I was super effaced. And he was like, man, if you were like this, just a tiny little bit more, I would just send you across the street to the hospital and we just have that baby today. And I was like, then do it. And he's like, no.
Oh, thanks.
I know. He's like, why did you even say that?
How early was that? Or like how long before?
It would have been like a couple days before my due date.
Oh, wow.
Like 2 days. I think it was 2 days before my due date. Yeah, because it was my birthday. Yep, I remember. And so I was super mad that he would not. No, I just don't want to be pregnant anymore. Because you just get to that point, where I just want my baby. Like I'm over it completely. That the novelty has worn off.
And taking care of 2 kids in a farm while you're that pregnant.
Yeah, and we didn't live actually at the farm at that point, but still, yeah, taking care of 2 kids, just over it. So, but yeah, so then I remember my due date came and I was like, fine, you know what? He's a May baby. And it was May 17th. And I was like, fine, I'm going to start a project because that's the fastest way to make this happen, right? Is to get in the middle of something I don't want to be interrupted in. And then maybe the baby will come, right? Maybe that will. So it was spring. And I remember going and getting my plants like for flowers for outside, just, like in pots and stuff. So I went and bought all those. And actually, in hindsight, it was probably something that helped things move along because I was on the ground, like squatting a lot, like potting the plants. And that probably really kind of helped move things along a little bit there. But I was just trying to get my flowers planted. And then I know we went for a walk that night, just around the block. And I remember pushing my daughter in her stroller because she was 2. And I remember thinking, oh, God, my back hurts. But if I stopped moving, it didn't hurt. I was just like, oh, being pregnant sucks. I can't even walk around the block. I was just, that's where I was. Put the kids to bed. We laid on the couch. We watched a show, got up and to go to bed. And again, when I walked, my back just killed. But if I stopped walking, no pain. It was kind of like, like as a non-pregnant person, if I had that pain, I would think, oh, I need to go to the chiropractor. It's that kind of a pinchy, whatever. I remember my husband having to help me physically walk to the bed because it hurt so bad. But then lay down, no pain, super fine. Sweet. So I lay down, go to sleep. And I woke up at about 12:25 or so. And I woke up because I had to pee because I was pregnant. And it was like the tail end of a contraction, maybe. And I'd been having, false labor for a few weeks, like, many, many moms do. A few times it had woken me up enough where I would get up and go to the living room because I didn't want to wake anybody up unless it was the real deal. And you get your little phone out and you're so excited to like start timing the contractions. And then it would be, okay, they're 5 minutes apart. Oh my gosh, they're 5 minutes apart. And then they just quit. And you're like, damn it. Like, seriously? And then that's it. All right, I guess this is not baby time. Then you go back to bed. So when I woke up and I had to pee, it was like that tail end of was that a contraction? Maybe it was. If I had to pee so bad, I was like, you know what? By the time I go to the bathroom, I'll either have another one or I won't. And I'll know if this was something to stay up and time these or not. So I got to like hobble, my back still hurt, hobbled to the bathroom, got to the bathroom, sat down on the toilet and had another contraction or had like a real I'm having a contraction now. Fantastic. And then now I'll try not to be like too like gross and graphic, but like this is like a pregnant, like a birth story
Let
thing,
loose.
right? So like we got like we gotta have some like, okay. So for people that maybe don't know, like when you're gonna have a baby, your body releases hormones to release like everything. Like it's, release the baby time, release all the fluids, release, if you got pee or poop in you, it's coming out too. And sometimes, I was nauseous with my first one a little bit because, if you have something in your stomach, your body is just like vacate everything out. So I was on the toilet and I thought I had to pee. Well, more came out than just pee. And then I had another contraction, a second contraction on the toilet. And I was like, holy shit, I just had 2 contractions and that one was really strong. And that was not even like, I had the first one. I'm like, oh, I'll have to, when I finish up on the toilet, I'll have to start timing these. No. You don't have time to start timing because you're having another one. Like, what? That doesn't happen. And this one was pretty strong. So I'm like hollering for my husband to wake up because he's dead to the world, of course. And what felt like forever, I'm sure it was not very long at all. He kind of wakes up and I'm trying to, get myself off the toilet. And it's the middle of the night, it's like 12:30 and we have 2 little kids. So we, of course, had a plan in place for what do we do if we go into labor when the kids are home alone. And so my brother-in-law thankfully lived in town, just like a couple blocks away. So our plan was if it's the middle of the night, we'll call brother-in-law. He'll come just sleep on the couch. And then in the morning, we can call grandma who lived about an hour away because we didn't want to get grandma up in the middle of the night. She'd have to drive the whole hour in the dark. Okay, whatever. So I yelling at my husband. I'm like, call your brother. Right. So he's like, what's going on? And he's like, okay, he figures it out pretty quick. And then in my head, I just want to change my clothes I had no idea why that was important, but I needed to change my clothes. I don't remember what I was wearing. And then grab my phone and then let's go. Right. So I walk into our walk-in closet by the bathroom and he comes in, he'd called his brother and he comes in because we doctored, in a town that was an hour away. Oh. And he kind of was looking at me like,
yikes.
Are we gonna go to that doctor? And I was like, no, because luckily, in the town that we lived in, we had a hospital and it was a county hospital that did deliver babies. In Iowa, not all county hospitals do deliver babies, but this one, there was an OB on staff and, we just chose not to doctor there because I didn't want to switch doctor. We had moved. I didn't want to switch doctors on my last pregnancy, whatever. So I was like, no, we're going to go to the one that's like a mile away. Thanks. And then he's like, do you think I should call him? And I was like, I don't care. And I was like, it's because I was having another contraction. So this is like contraction number like 3 or 4. And he's like, okay, he didn't want to leave me, but he's like, I got to go unlock the door for my brother. Go, whatever. I don't care. I'm having a contraction. I don't want to talk to anybody. So he goes, I finished my contraction, put on a pair of old sweatpants, which thankfully it was a pair of old sweatpants. Walked over around to the side of my bed, grabbed my phone, walked to the doorway, had another contraction. I mean, this is not how long is it? It's not a giant bedroom. We lived in just like a ranch. So I get to the doorway and I had a contraction so strong it dropped me to my knees. And let me just also say that my other 2 babies, I had epidurals with both of them because I don't like the pain, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's no epidural in your bedroom, so you just have to suck it up, sister. So I dropped to my knees and yelled. I mean, and I remember thinking, like, you see these women on TV and movies that are like moaning and in labor. And I am just here to say that is real. That is the real. There are noises that came out of me that like it was like an almost an out of body experience, like watching this happen to me, because I'm like, I have no control over any of the sounds coming out of me. I'm not thinking to myself, oh, I should yell here. No. It is just like this visceral reaction to what is going on. I was dropped to my knees, yelled. My husband was out in the garage unlocking the door and got to the door and heard me and came running back in like, oh my God, what's wrong? Well, like, I'm having a baby. That's what's wrong. Like, he's like, well, I didn't get the door unlocked because I heard you. He's like, I'm sorry, I got to go. Like, unlock the door. I'm like, just go. So he runs back to go unlock the door. And we had a long hallway. Our bedroom was at one end. Our children shared a bedroom at the other end. I did not want to wake them up because they get up. Like, I can't do anything with that. Plus, you don't want to see this. You know what I mean? Like, just so I was just like, oh, try not to be too loud, whatever. Plus, the carpet, the hallway was long and the carpet was like cream colored. And at this point, I'm pretty aware of like things are moving pretty quick. So all I could think to myself was get off the carpet, get off the carpet, get off the carpet, get off. Like, I don't want to like make a mess on my carpet. Because that's what's important here at this moment, clearly, is you don't want to make a stain on your carpet that you're going to have to clean up later when you get home. So I got to the end of the carpet and got onto the linoleum right by my kids', or not linoleum, but laminate floor, right by my kids' bedroom door, had another contraction. I mean, again, this is not a giant house, like from one end of the hallway to the other. And then I had another contraction. Yelling, of course. That one finishes. I start like crawling on my knees towards it's kind of a big, it was like a dining room, front door entryway leads into the kitchen, kind of a big open space there. And my brother-in-law got there. I mean, like I said, he lives pretty close, so he wasn't very far away. And the dog was there, and our dog is like one of those, not like one of those good dogs. He was one of the, he was a good dog, but he's one of those dogs that's like going to be up in your business. And I was yelling at him, like, get the dog in the kennel. Like, I don't want to deal with that because at this point, I'm like, this has happened. Like, I've had 2 other babies. This is happening like now.
Uh-huh.
And my brother-in-law came in with my husband. And I should also note that they are both pretty big dudes. My brother-in-law is the head wrestling coach at the high school. At that time, my husband was his assistant. They also coached football together. They're like 6'3", both of them, like big, broad-shouldered, big dudes. So my brother-in-law comes around the corner, takes one look at me and says, can you walk? And I said, no, don't touch me. Because I was afraid they were going to pick me up because they easily, the 2 of them could have picked me up and put me in the car to drive me to the hospital. And I knew that I'm like, we'll have this baby like in the garage. Like, I'm not having my baby in the garage. Like, I could tell like this is happening soon. So as soon as I said, don't touch me, he said, okay, 911. So he whips out his phone, dialed 911. I was amazed that he knew our street address to tell them, like, good job. The police had to have been like a block away. I mean, they were so close because I'm like, all right, this happening, I guess right here. I was more comfortable on my hands and knees, but I was thinking like, So my husband's going to have to deliver this baby, and he's probably going to be more comfortable if I'm on my, like, it's going to be easier for him if I'm on my back, like it was, when I had the babies in the hospital. So he'll kind of maybe hopefully remember what this is about. I don't know. Like, how do you have a baby at home by yourself? Nobody tells you this. No. So I laid on my back, and the police, I mean, man, they were like Johnny on the spot. So the one police officer stayed outside, I think, because he was like, I don't need to be a part of this. And so he stood outside to like tell the ambulance, like, this is the right house. And the other police officer was a woman who had never had a baby. And I feel like I maybe have scarred her for life. Maybe she still never has had a baby. I don't know. But so she was like, towels? And I'm like, yeah, they're like right there. So she gets the towels. My 5-year-old comes out of his bedroom. My brother-in-law is there like, hey, Colin, your mom's having a baby and the police are here. Isn't that cool? Go back to bed. And he was like, what? But he was like so confused. He was like, all right. So he just went back to bed. Thank goodness. And then, I never pushed, but I could tell my husband, like, this, here comes, like, get ready. I never pushed. I had a contraction and out he came. And that was it. And looking at him, as soon as I laid eyes on him, I was like, oh, he's fine. Like, I don't know if it's that either. I was just like, I don't know. And I was in shock a little bit. And maybe it's that mother, like, I don't know, intuition or something. But as soon as I saw him, I was like, he's fine. He's fine. My husband, on the other hand, was a little like, oh my God, what do I do? Is he fine? Because he's the one that actually is having to take care,
Mm-hmm.
And he's not crying right away. And, babies don't always cry right away. You got to clean all the gunk out and whatnot. The ambulance is not there yet. The ambulance did not take long, by the way. It's just, they still have to get in the ambulance and drive there. And so they wrapped him up in a towel, and he was fine. And then the ambulance got there, and they were like, what? We thought we were coming to take a pregnant lady to the hospital. What just happened? And I'll never forget, we lived in a small town, and the ambulance attendants' names were Oscar and Critter. And I was like, what kind of, like, Sesame Street, like, Muppets are helping me deliver this, but whatever. You know what? At this point, I don't even care. So they were like super excited, and so they're starting to, like, clean him up and check him over because they know what to do with a newborn baby. And at that point, I remember looking over at my brother-in-law, who was kind of sitting by my head, and I was like, oh my God, we need a time of birth. Like, we're going to need a time of birth for the birth certificate. Mm-hmm. What time is it? He's like, it's 12:50. And then he's like, I've been here for 10 minutes.
Oh,
and
my God.
I was like, oh, so his birth certificate does say 12:50, even though that's not accurate. But because he had been born for a while before we realized, oh yeah, we're going to need this. Because when you're at the hospital, that's somebody else's job. There's like a nurse or somebody that's like, oh yes, I will watch this clock and tell you the exact second that your baby came out. But we were not thinking about that at the time, obviously. So yeah, so they loaded me up on the stretcher, took us to the hospital. We got into the ambulance, and they radioed into the hospital like, hey, we're bringing in that lady and her baby. And the nurse replied back, holy shit. And we were all like, we looked around like, yeah, holy shit. That summed it all up. Exactly what everyone was thinking. One of the police officers had to drive the ambulance because now there were 2 patients that needed tending to. And one of them had to be held. So, Critter held my son, and then Oscar was tending to me, and my husband rode along. And, we got to the hospital, and the ER attending doctor was like, I don't really want to touch you because I don't know how to do baby stuff. But the OB was on their way. I was getting a little concerned because I hadn't delivered my placenta yet, and I didn't want, that can be a thing. Like, you don't want to wait too long. Mm-hmm. But that all worked out fine. And I'm laying there, that we're waiting for the OB to come. And I was like, can I hold my baby? And they're like, oh my God, you haven't held him yet? I'm like, no. Like, he was just lying there quietly in a little bassinet because everyone was so like in shock. Like, what just happened? What do we do? This isn't how this is supposed to go. Like, nobody, like the us, obviously, the nurses, the doctors, the ambulance attendant, nobody was like, what? And so then I finally got to hold him, and then they got us up to our room. And here's the downside of, if you're listening to this story going, hey, that sounds great, I want to have my baby in 20 minutes. No, you don't. I did, when you have a baby that fast, you do tear. I mean, well, I did anyway. And he was 10 pounds and I don't remember how many ounces. And so the doctor's there and she's like, well, you're going to need some stitches, which I needed stitches for the other two anyway. So I was like, yes, it's part of having a baby sometimes. But when you have your baby at the hospital, the doctor's right there. And immediately after you have your baby, you're, oh, look, I just had a baby a few seconds ago. I'm so excited. And then the doctor kind of like can stitch you up real quick while you're not really paying attention. And you still have a lot of like endorphins going. And it had been, by the time the doctor got there and then they got a room ready and we got upstairs to the room, it had been a while since I'd had that baby. And so I didn't have those endorphins going quite the same as you would have right away. And she was like, I can give you 3 shots to numb the pain, or I can just do it in 3 stitches. What do you want? And I was like, I get, at this point, just whatever. I don't know. So she just stitched me up with nothing. I'm like, ugh. So that was not a pleasant, but it was going to be 3 moments of pain anyway. Yeah. So I was like, whatever. At this point, like, what am I even doing here? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we stayed at the hospital just like a regular birth and everything else. He was totally healthy. At my 6-week checkup with my doctor, I, of course, was like, hey, how come you didn't send me across the street that one day when I was, because listen to what happened when you didn't. And then, he kind of chuckled about it. And I was like, but the baby was fine. And he said, I had never heard the term precipitous birth before, but that's what it's called when you hear, headlines, woman has baby in gas station. Like, I used to hear those and be like, how do you not know you're having a baby? Well, as it turns out, sometimes you do know, but it just happens so quick. It's a thing, precipitous birth. And he told me that 99.9% of the time when there is a precipitous birth, the babies and the moms are always fine. He said it's like a nature thing. It's just, there's not complications and it always works out. So thank goodness. So I lived to tell the tale. It was quite the experience. He was our last baby. I mean, we were pretty sure we were going to stop at number 3, but then after that, we're like, yep, we are definitely not pressing our luck again. That was enough. That child has continued to be full of surprises as he's gotten older. He's 8.5 now. So yeah. So there's my story that will either shock or scare or wow or make you grateful that you didn't have one of those births. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
it almost sounds like Liz's. Oh, sorry. It almost sounds like Liz's. We're really going.
You go.
Almost. That's what it reminded me of, where she was like, "This baby is coming now," and
I didn't even push.
Yeah, I didn't know that was even a thing. Yeah. You hear stories of like, oh God, I pushed for 5 hours or however long, and I mean, with my first, I know I pushed for at least like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's like, there's effort that's involved, but it's such a wild experience when your body just takes over and you're just kind of along for the ride. I guess we're doing this because I'm not in control anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've always said, like, if I have a third, like, I might as well just like hire a midwife and have a home birth, because my first was 8 hours, second was 4 hours. So who even knows with the third?
Yep. Yeah. If you do, I recommend planning on a home birth because that's kind of the trajectory that I was on there. So
except you too, even a midwife wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
Whew. So did your brother-in-law still stay, and then your the grandparent came in the morning still?
Yeah. Yep. My brother-in-law stayed on the couch, and then grandma came the next morning. about a week or so after we were home from the hospital, I took a giant bottle of whiskey over to him and I said, hey, let's just forget this ever happened. I mean, that's a different kind of family bonding togetherness when your brother-in-law helps deliver your child. So I was like, you've seen things that maybe you'd rather forget. So just drink this all at once.
That's so funny.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like I could see myself doing that to like Liz's husband or something.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
I mean,
just
in the
forget that.
moment, yeah. And, in the moment, you don't care who's seeing what because like
not at
you're
all.
just not thinking you don't care. You just don't care.
Yeah.
But then a week after, like you kind of care. It's a little, you're like, hey, that's maybe awkward, isn't it?
I love it.
How was your like postpartum with your third? Like, were you still like in shock, or how did you like process all of that?
Yeah, it was, I remember after everybody finally left our hospital room, just sitting there with my husband, like, what just happened? Like we were kind of in a little bit of shock there. And, it wore off a little bit at the hospital, but then coming back home and going back into the house to, the scene of the incident, being in that same spot in our house was weird for both of us. And I remember telling my sister and she was like, was it? Why was it weird? I'm like, cause I don't know. It was just weird, like to be back there and remember. But you have two other little kids at home. You don't really have time to linger in the weirdness of stuff. You gotta, keep momming. So, and postpartum recovery was, not too much different than the other two. So bounced back pretty quickly, but yeah, quite a wild ride.
Yeah. When I went back to the birthing center, it was like a week after I had my first, and I burst into tears, and everyone's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's weird being here right now.
Yeah. Yep. I remember being, pretty emotional after my first one. I know my husband, I remember he had to go to the store to get like dish detergent or something. I had to call him and tell him. And then like, I remember like bursting into tears about that. Like what? And then I was like, what is happening to you? Cause it was like the most plain phone conversation. He was like, yep, I will pick up the dish detergent. Okay, great. Cause we are out. Goodbye. I mean, and then like crying about it. Like but then I was like, all right, well, I just had a baby and there's hormones and weird stuff. But yeah, so that's a thing. And I know with, my first two kids, I had this tendency, I wouldn't realize I was doing it until I think both times, like my mom came and stayed a little bit for the first few days at home. And I was having this tendency to like close all the blinds and it was like really dark. And I was just like, I don't know, like wanting to like hibernate or something. I don't know what that was, but she was like, why is it so dark in here? Why do you have, like, let's let the sun in, like get some, sunshine and vitamin D and like be back in the world, because you feel like you're not really quite in the real world yet. After you have a baby, you're kind of in your own little world. I think that's okay. As long as you don't linger there for too long, as long as you have somebody that says, okay, but maybe for a little while, let's open the blinds.
Good job, Mom. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
I know. Just like we've had like, we live in the Midwest. So like just the nice days that we've had, I'm like, I feel like a new human.
Yes. Yeah. Or being able to get outside with your baby for the first time or two. And I know that's hard for, mamas that have them in the winter when it's cold. Most of my babies were springtime. My daughter, whose birthday, today, and it's March, it was unseasonably warm that year. People came to the hospital in shorts and t-shirt to visit us, and it stayed warm. So I always tell her that, the earth was so happy the day you were born, that the spring sprung early and the flowers bloomed. And she's like, whatever, Mom. But I'm like, no, it's true. It really was really warm. It was like 72 degrees.
Yeah.
But just being able to get outside and get that fresh air and start kind of, getting yourself immersed into the real world again, just bit by bit, it's weird. The first time you take baby out to a store and you're like, people are going to breathe on him, like but yeah, just little bits. And then before you know it, they're 2 and they're eating dirt. And you're like, yep, I guess it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am over this winter. Like, I am just so ready for sunshine and spring and summer. Like, I feel like, I've definitely had a touch of the seasonal depression this year. Like,
Yeah.
So, it's just everything.
Yeah. And up here today, we just got another little cold snap. We've been having snowstorms like every week. I don't know if you guys have been having these same systems come through that we've had, but like every Thursday it snows. And I'm like, all right.
Weird.
But today, then it was more in like normal spring, early spring temperatures, late winter temperatures. But then now today, it's like this cold front came through with the snow, and now the feels like temperature was it was 8 degrees, but it's going to get to -14 tonight. So for a feels like temperature because it's really windy.
Yeah.
But it's March, so can we maybe not
bump it up?
Not do January and March, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yikes. Boy. So do you have any like advice for, I mean, either like someone who has a quick labor or, like what would you even do to prepare if you had known?
And I think about it because especially with my first one, I don't remember with my third one, but I know for sure with my first one, like I was the mom that had the birth plan and this is exactly how every single thing is going to go down. And like that went out the window. I would be curious to know any moms that had a birth plan that were like, yep, we did everything exactly as I had planned. I mean, maybe there are, because that was not ever my experience with any of my kiddos. But I think that when you're pregnant, especially with your first kid, and you don't know what to expect, I think all that extra planning is okay, because I think that helps you kind of process and mentally kind of work through different scenarios. And okay, if this happens, or do I want this to happen? And I'm big on visualization. I know that was something that I did a lot of. There was a program, it was called Hypno Babies. And it was, you listen to a lot of stuff while you were pregnant, and then you were supposed to listen to it like during birth, and it was supposed to kind of like train your brain, and then you'd have the baby in a certain way. I did not listen to it during my birth because, again, like everything went out the window. I was like, I just want the drugs. I don't like, like you're just whatever. But I did listen to it prior to, and there was a lot of visualization with it. And a lot of my visualizing actually came true. Thinking about, I knew that I wanted to have my baby, I wanted to go into labor in the morning after a full night's sleep. So, and that's exactly what happened. My water broke at 8:00 in the morning when I got up out of bed. I wanted like no traffic on the way to the hospital because I was just worried about, I didn't know what would happen, if we're held up or something. And we ended up having him on a Saturday, and to drive downtown, there's nobody's going downtown on a Saturday. So there's no traffic, I wanted my favorite doctor. I was always visualizing, because we went to a practice where you'd get a different doctor every time. And I had a favorite, and I was like, oh, I really want my favorite. And he was, my favorite doctor was the one that delivered, actually both of my kids that were in hospitals. So, I think visualizing is really important, and it helps you feel a little bit more in control, and all the planning that you feel like you need to do is really great. However, what's more important is just having trust in your body. And that's what my third crazy birth really taught me, because it was not an out of body experience, because I was very much present, feeling it all. But I was so in awe of, wow, I'm doing nothing. I'm not doing it. I mean, my body is just doing it. Like I'm not wanting to do this, but it's doing it. And here he comes. I mean, I can tell what's happening, but I am not in control of my own body at all right now, but in an okay kind of way, because my body just knows what to do, knows how to do this. And I can kind of relax into that and take a back seat and just allow things to happen. So again, I think, planning is great. I think it helps a mom's brain kind of prepare. But again, just trusting that your body knows what to do, and then trusting your own intuition, because I'm sure we've all heard mom stories of, the doctor said I was fine, but I just had a doctor's appointment, but I felt like something was wrong. And then they went in and, oh yeah, good thing you came in because XYZ. So I don't think, just always trusting that mommy gut, that mommy intuition to know, trust your own body and don't think, oh, well, don't second guess yourself. If you have, a niggling feeling, like follow that. And just know our bodies are amazing. I mean, it's completely like not only do you create a human, but it can just like give birth to it. Just makes a whole baby and says, squirts it out and here you go. Here's your kid. Your bodies can do that. So just trusting that is super important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty like incredible that like our bodies like grow for like a certain amount of time. You're kind of like within a plus 2 weeks or minus 2 weeks from your guest date. And like our bodies just know, okay, it's time for this thing to exit it. It's like we're done now growing it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of just incredible. Like, actually put in perspective.
Yeah. Cause consciously, like we kind of know, like you say, like +2, -2 of your due date. We know just from life and history that, babies born during this time are probably okay. And this is probably a good time to have a baby. But your body knows when that particular baby is fully cooked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Yeah. Births are something else. Nothing else like it on the planet. Every birth is different. Every birth that's another, that third birth going so quick. We were like, we're done with 3. This is fine. We don't want to do that again or have one go even quicker. Could that even possibly physically happen? But then I was also like, what if it went like the other way? What if we had one that was like really long? I would not handle that well after having, like a 20-minute labor. I would not do so good with, like a 24-hour labor or longer. So,
yeah, so true.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I just had my second baby in January. And that's like what the nurses were saying. Like the second one kind of like goes half the time of your first. And then the third one is just a free for all. Like they don't know. They don't know what's going to happen. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. If you want to tell us like a little bit about your podcast and then you're an author, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So the book that I was a co-author in a book called The Motherhood Diaries, which is appropriate for this podcast. And we released it and then we pulled it because there were some editing issues, and it's actually getting ready to be re-released around Mother's Day again this year. So again, that's The Motherhood Diaries. It's just a compilation of, I think there were 10 of us that just wrote our own little perspective on motherhood. It's kind of a coffee table book, just little short stories. So, but with the idea to put out, we each have our own 10 different perspectives on motherhood, and we were hoping that the intention would be to help other mothers, to support them, because no motherhood journey is the same. But I think when we all share our stories, it helps other people feel less alone, because you can feel alone in motherhood or feel like, oh, my friends aren't having these experiences. Maybe there's something wrong with me, or maybe, I'm some kind of a mothering freak, or I don't know what I'm doing or whatever. But the more we can share our stories and go, no, this is our experiences. I think it just kind of helps uplift and support other mothers. So that was the intention behind that book. And then my podcast, Up Level Your Life with Mindy, is all about leveling up your life. It's a pretty broad topic because I pull in a lot of guest speakers to talk on so many different things, anything that I think is going to help somebody else live a better life. So I have had a professional organizer come in, and she's talked about, the impacts of like clutter in your home and, all of that. I have had someone talk about trauma before, different ways to deal with trauma, different therapies for that. I have had someone talk about living your purpose and how do you find your purpose. My background is a holistic health and nutrition coach, so I'd share a lot of, habits and goal setting things, as well as some physical things as well. So yeah, I cover the gamut, but it's super fun. One of the most fun things that I do is my podcast. So
oh, Very cool. I love
Awesome.
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the book sounds amazing. And,
Mhm.
you know, as you're talking, I'm like, well, that's so similar to why we started this too. It's just like every birth story, every motherhood journey is so different, but like every person that we've had on here, I can find something to relate with them on.
Yep.
And it just like deepens these connections of, I don't know, being human.
Yeah. Yeah. Really. I mean, even though we're all so different and no one's having the same experience, we're all, connected on some level. And, we're all moms. And so that's a connection right there. And it's just, the more we share, the more we can support each other. So I think that's great. That's why I wanted to be a part of that book. And then I think this is great that you guys have this podcast. Birth stories are so fun. I mean, and everybody wants to share their birth story. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's fun to kind of relive it again, but it's fun to hear birth stories too, because they're all different. There's never are two the same. So,
Nope.
Yeah, that's what I love about it so much. And just echoing what Liz said, like there is just some sort of connection here. And I just love that.
Yeah.
We have a St. Louis local mom who kind of did like the same book outline that you did. So like had women co-author the book of their path to motherhood. So it's called Paths to Motherhood. So she's coming on, and I'm really excited just because her journey to motherhood was, just a long like IVF process. So yeah, it's just amazing how all these women like share that process and how different it looks for each and every one. But again, there's some sort of connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to read that book. I'm excited for that to come out.
Yeah, I'm excited for it to be re-released as well, because it really, really is a powerful piece of work. So
yeah. Is there any way people can connect with you on social media, and then Up-Level Your Life with Mindy, so we can add that in?
Yeah. On Facebook, you can find me Mindy Duff. And then on Instagram, you can search up Up-Level Your Life with Mindy. And again, that's the name of my podcast, Up-Level Your Life with Mindy. And my website is mindyduff.com. So
cool. We'll definitely we'll link those in the show notes.
Cool.
So that people can find you easily.
Thank you so much for coming on again. And just how wild that last birth was. Really took that's a great grand finale right there.
Yeah, there it is. That was the grand finale. Yep.
Yeah.
Good way to put it.
So thank you again. And we'll put your info in our show notes, so if listeners want to connect with you. But that is all we have for tonight. So tune in next Monday for our next episode, and we will see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.